So my wife and I recently celebrated our 19th anniversary with a little mountain getaway. We'd just returned back from a lovely dinner to the village resort. She armed with a bottle of wine, myself with a bottle of rye and those cheap plastic cups you get in the room, just so I could enjoy a nice cigar by the outdoor fire pit. And then we proceeded to play host to over a half dozen complete strangers. Now, my wife and I are both introverts. If I'm being generous, I might be what Susan Cain in her fantastic book Quiet refers to as an ambivert, which means I can extrovert with the best of them, but usually at a hefty emotional cost that requires I recharge my emotional batteries in complete solitude afterwards. Which is to say, in my normal day-to-day routine, I offer up usually nothing more than a smile and a nod to complete strangers, and yet here we were, hours from home, suddenly engaging and talkative to these people. We chatted up a couple of vapors. Think of them as unhealthy vegans with all the proselytizing fervor of Jehovah's Witnesses. Every vapor I come across has the same shtick. They used to be smokers, but now they vape, and they've taken their nicotine levels from a 15 down to a 5, and yet not a single one of them have managed to actually quit smoking as this potpourri-smelling cloud wafts over with funny names like Strappleberry, Vazilla, and Sex on the Peach. This couple was no different. As soon as the husband had left, the wife was frantically scrounging around for a cigarette of her own. Meanwhile, the husband was mildly manic. He had forgotten his stash of weed back in the freezer at home and was trying to score at this resort, which was clearly the bachelorette capital of Ontario this weekend. We also met this lovely elderly woman who was downstairs having a cigarette. She and her husband were at the resort while expansive renovations were being undergone at her husband's place. It was 3 weeks behind schedule, and she was just getting very aggravated and impatient. Now, her husband, her second, had been estranged from his kids for years, but they, having gotten whiff of his mortality, had suddenly appeared out of the woodwork, all solicitous and prying about the state of his will. And she'd smugly noted that he had long ago changed it over into her favor, years ago. But they didn't know that. We asked where the husband was, and she said he was upstairs trying to get dressed, and he had damn well better learn how to do things on his own. He eventually did come down the stairs, armed with a walker, and hobbled over, at which point she grabbed his arm and they went off on a mountain hike. We talked to other people that shared stories of moving, marriage proposals, and fertility problems. There's something about being a complete stranger that seems to elicit these shared moments, which, dovetails nicely into the latest book I finished, which is Jenny Diskey's Strangers on a Train. In this, Jenny Diskey is intent on circumnavigating the entire United States by train. She wants nothing more than to watch the scenery pass by her window as she smokes her cigarettes, and instead encounters a host of strangers with their own unique stories to tell. There is the chef, who's more likely just hopped up on cocaine, the really dim 20-something girl who's frankly incensed over the warning to watch out for live tracks, when tracks are clearly made of metal and can't possibly be alive. There's Big Daddy with his mythic tales of the southern cities they pass by, crazed internet theorists, Reagan-era Republicans who wish for a return to agrarian society, and Joseph, who in his lifetime made weapons and spaceships and had retired to be a cruise ship dance partner. Strangers and smokers all with their own unique stories to tell. Diskey has an affinity for her fellow smoker. These folks ostracized to this grubby smoking car with peeling linoleum floors, institutional gray walls, and hard plastic seats. Unironically, Diskey would die of inoperable lung cancer earlier this year, but she was unapologetic and defiant to the very end. When first given her diagnosis, she lamented the inevitable performance of the illness, stories of hope and letdown, and this predetermined script that she was going to have to participate in. Nonetheless, she did eventually relent and would go on to write what she would lovingly refer to as yet another fucking cancer diary. But for us ex-smokers, reading Strangers on a Train can be a bit of a nail-biter, as it seems primarily concerned as to when she's going to have her next smoke. She's largely unconcerned with what goes on outside of the smoking car, but nonetheless this would go on in 2003 to win the Thomas Cook Travel Book Award. It reminded me a lot of Rachel Cusk's Outline, in which the narrator, mostly invisible, travels to Greece to do some literary people-watching. She encounters strangers, and their unique stories gives her the opportunity to explore things like the nature of relationships and our place in the world. And it turns out I love these serendipitous stories, these lives of other people. There's something about being a stranger, that these stories that you wouldn't normally tell friends or family, you find yourself opening up in the presence of other strangers. And both these authors record those stories from just regular people, and I find it hypnotizing, and I can't seem to get enough. All right, one last story about meeting strangers. I love Las Vegas. I'm one of those guys that loves going down, and I've traveled there several times with a good friend of mine. He's the ideal travel companion when we do go to Vegas. We both love to play poker, and we'll try and meet for dinner, but if we're deep within a tournament, that's fine. We'll be sure to meet the next morning and recount all the bad beats and heroic calls from the day before. The other thing I appreciate is he plays within his bounds, which means that both of us, when we hit our limit for the day, bust out or not, we stop playing. And that happened to us the one day, so we decided to switch over to people watching, which Vegas is absolutely fantastic for. We had met up with a nice older couple that were there for a blackjack tournament when the wife of the couple turned to me and asked, "What exactly is Resident Evil?" I explained that it's this post-apocalyptic zombie horror movie series that was based on a video game, at which point she wrinkled her nose and says, "Oh, no, that's not for me," and offered my friend and I tickets to Resident Evil Extinction. But it turns out it was for the global premiere. When we wandered in, we were there and saw all the stars of the movie, including Mila Jovovich, Oded Fehr, and Ali Lauder. The theater itself was mountains of concession treats and goodies, pop, ours for the taking. We settled in, watched the movie, and the tickets themselves also got us access to a rooftop pool party later that evening with live DJ, go-go dancers, all the booze we could drink, and a free catered meal. It was a night of decadent indulgence, and all thanks to a chance encounter with a complete stranger. Maybe I need some more travel memoir recommendations. I have shark fin and Szechuan pepper, as well as Do Travel Writers Go to Hell on my super secret TBR, but I'd love to hear your recommendations, as well as maybe your best I Met a Stranger story, whether it's a video response or in the comments below. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great reading week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.